good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome and thank you for spending the next hour with us. So this is a live webinar running the lean GRC program, what to own, what to automate, and what to hand off. I'm Aayush, I'm your host and also the co-founder and CEO of Scrut Automation, and I'll be moderating today's conversation. So we put this session together because security and compliance expectations tend to grow much faster than the teams responsible for managing them. It may begin with one customer asking for SOC 2, then another asks about ISO 27001, a new market introduces privacy requirements, enterprise buyers send longer and longer security questionnaires, new systems and vendors enter the environment, AI tools begin appearing across teams. So today, we're not going to tell you that a lean team should simply work harder or maintain a larger checklist. We're going to focus on the decisions that actually matter. What should your team own? What should be automated? And what can be handed off reasonably? And also what must remain visible to leadership as the business grows. So a couple of housekeeping things before we get into the conversation. The session is being recorded and we'll share the recording and the Lean GRC survival kit after the webinar. We also have 3 audience polls planned. So there's no mic needed. You're on mute by default. No need to worry about any background noise from your end. Feel free to drop your questions anytime. Do stay back for the Q&A. We also have 3 audience polls planned. I'll bring those in at different points in the conversation so that we can understand what the reality looks like for the people in the room, not just for the 3 of us on the panel. And you can submit questions, as I mentioned. Also, one important note, this is intended to be a practical conversation. It's not a product demonstration. We are not going to compare any security or compliance framework in detail. We're mostly going to talk about principles. So let me quickly introduce the panelists. I'll introduce Senthil first. So first we have Senthil Kumar Iyyappan, better known as Ski, who is the CISO and SVP of IT at Acrodus. In his role, Ski leads security and IT through the realities of a growing business, balancing enterprise risk, customer trust, compliance expectations, and day-to-day operational resilience. He's built and advised security programs through periods of scale, organizational change, and increasing regulatory and customer scrutiny. Ski brings a CISO and practitioner perspective, including how to create executive visibility, establish clear risk ownership, build controls that work in practice, and decide when a lean security program needs more people, automation, or specialist support. So thanks for joining me, Ski.
Thanks, Aayush. Happy to be here.
I'll next introduce Sanket. So we also have Sanket Naik, founder and CEO of Panelists, and former SVP of Cloud Ops and Security at Kumar. At Panelists, Sanket is building AI agents for DevSecOps that help regulated companies ship AI products while meeting compliance requirements. The platform is purpose-built for security with enterprise-grade guardrails designed to support accuracy, consistency, auditability, and reliability across use cases such as security design reviews, code reviews, threat modeling, threat intelligence, and compliance. Sanket brings the founder and operator perspective, including what it takes to make early security investments, support enterprise growth, and decide which requirements genuinely matter at each stage. So Ski and Sanket, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Aayush, for the great introduction, and really looking forward to the discussion.
All right. I'll maybe just take another 30 seconds to introduce myself. I am Aayush, CEO and co-founder of Scrut. I've experienced the Lean GRC challenge firsthand from trying to meet enterprise security expectations with a small team to building Scrut out of our own SOC 2 readiness journey in a previous stint. Today, I work very closely with growing companies as they navigate security, compliance, customer trust, and the operational realities of scaling. I'll be moderating the conversation, but I'll also share a few patterns and lessons we've seen across the teams that we work with very often. So I'll keep the conversation moving, but I'll jump in with some of the patterns we're seeing across growing security and GRC teams, especially in a tech forward or tech first context. So, okay, now we come to poll 1. Let's take a quick poll from the room. All right. Before we get into the first discussion, let's quickly hear from the audience. I want to understand what is actually keeping your compliance program running today. Do we have the poll up? Yes, we do. Okay, let's see. So an overwhelming majority has actually voted on one person holding everything together, followed by shared ownership, but uneven follow through, and the last two are sort of distant thirds and fourth. Okay, so that's a very familiar reality. One person may be capable of coordinating the program, but when all the context, reminders, evidence, and follow-ups basically sit with that one person, the company has created both a capacity problem and a key person risk. And that's exactly why the question of ownership matters so much. Okay, great. Moving on. So before we discuss automation, certification, or I want to begin with leadership. Uh, a compliance program actually may have a project owner, and that individual could be named a variety of things. It may have a security lead, a GRC manager, or an IT leader coordinating the work. But the actual risk decisions that affect product, I mean, the actual risk decisions they have a pretty cross-cutting impact and a reasonably large blast radius across the organization. They affect product, engineering, HR, legal, finance, sales, and the company's overall direction, to be honest. So the program cannot be sustained by one person acting alone. So Ski, let me actually start with you. Before a company buys a compliance solution or a platform or a web or engages with a third-party vendor or begins preparing for an audit, what does its leadership team need to understand, buy into, and commit to?
Yeah, I think the poll itself has most of the answer. Let me start from there. So I think as leadership team, they should first really ask that question that you have put in the poll to understand what is the current state, right? So what we are looking at is buying a tool or a platform or preparing for audit. Very first thing that we need to understand is what is the ground reality, who is handling, what are the once you get to know what exactly is running the program, the ownership should be translated to the leadership team, right? That is the very first thing that leadership should understand and commit, right? Security or compliance department can own controls, implementation, monitoring, and all those things. The risk should be owned by the leadership team. While security can help tell, recommend risks and best practices, leadership first should commit to risks. Some simple questions are, do we know what are the risks? And what is the amount of risk that we can accept? And who is going to take ownership for that risk? Is it just always the security team or engineering or leadership altogether? And probably what is our current state of readiness, or like how are we prepared to reduce them? These are the things that one should understand before preparing for an audit or before buying a tool, or this should be the fundamental thinking for information security, because these are executive decisions at the end of the day, not just security decisions. Compliance tools are people who are single-handedly handling those compliance program will be able to probably help generating evidence. Tools can automate, tools can help us collect evidences, but tools alone will not be able to decide whether this is something that we are comfortable with. Should we go with this approach, or what is the risk that we are looking after it? Or it could be a simple product feature, or it is something, a compliance that we wanted to take and achieve. So for everything, there should be some decision that should be taken, and leadership should be involved in that. When leadership is owning the risk, compliance becomes much easier.
Got it. And Sanket, let me follow it up with a question to you. When we think about a mid-market kind of a company with, let's say, less than 200 employees, what does genuine executive commitment actually look like? What shape does it take? Because saying security is important is very different from actively participating in the decisions. But smaller teams are often stretched. Sometimes there aren't enough processes to build executive visibility. So what does genuine exec commitment for a company at that stage, say less than 200 employees, actually look like?
Yeah, and just to give you some context to what you said, so I was at Coupa from as employee number 25, so to 25% to 25% startup to it being a 3,000% public company over 12 years. So one of the main things, and right now I'm in the 0 to 1 journey with Palisade. So what's important is when you look at it, compliance, it's not one size fits all. It has to be right sized for the stage of the company at every point, right? So that's one important thing to keep in mind. The other principle I use is I always try to look at everything from a first principles perspective. So the most important thing is everyone at the company, including the point person for compliance, needs to know why are we doing this. Like if you can't really nail that with clarity why we're doing this, then you're just going to be, if you just get into the house too early, you're just going to be keep hitting roadblocks. So that's the most important thing. And for most, I would say 200, less than 200 person companies, I consider them SMB, not mid market. I would say it's like 1,000 plus, 1,000 to 5,000 person companies. So in an SMB, it's usually the pull is customers asking to do compliance, right? That's usually the ask. I mean, you have other things. You're trying to ship a product, you're trying to build a business, you're trying to do go to market, but you have a customer or a set of customers who are saying that, hey, in order for us to close business, you need to have say a SOC 2 report. That's usually the starting point for most companies, and that's the why from a business perspective, right? And it's important for compliance to both understand and leverage that's the why. Then it's the what. Now that you need to do this thing, what is it that needs to be done, right? What needs to be done internally? What kind of resources do you need to get externally? So that needs to be clear. And it doesn't happen like in a startup. You're usually doing things you're shipping like every day. You're doing things in weeks, but this takes time. It takes months to do SOC 2 compliance, right? Typically, if you haven't taken like 4 to 6 months to do it, you haven't done it right. And so this is like SOC 2 type 1 and type 2, right? So you got to be clear about the what, so you're not surprised by it. So kind of the plan. And the third thing is the high level how, right? And this is important both not just for the point person for compliance, but also on the business side. Like even, I mean, a small company, even the CEO should be aware of how are we going to do it at a very high level. And so that's very important for that. On that poll, we had that one person who's responsible. And that one person, it's important for that person to make sure they take the time to educate the executives that, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is what we're going to do about it. This is how we're going to do it. And then you got to make sure that's percolating down, right? So I think it can be a side project, right? It affects a lot of departments. Affects your IT, HR, engineering processes. You might have new processes. You might have tools to buy. This is going to take commitment from multiple team, multiple individuals. And so you got to make sure it's percolating down. So the thing I look for, that my third point is the thing I look for is, do I hear back the same thing when I ask, why are we doing this? So if you have got leadership buy-in, and if you go to someone on their team and you ask them why we're doing this, you need to hear back, we are doing this for SOC 2 compliance. If that's not what you're hearing, then your message hasn't percolated down. So it's a continuous exercise. It's not one and done. Just because you got buy-in once doesn't mean you're done. You have to keep reiterating it to make sure that you're getting the continuous buy-in, because it's not easy. It's especially if you're doing it the first time, it's a lot of effort. So you got to make sure you have that buy-in, and then you could keep reinforcing it.
So one thought I have after listening to both of you is, uh, and we work with companies who are at like various ends of the spectrum. Small companies, like 5 people companies looking to get SOC 2 compliant, 800, 900 people companies with a dedicated security team looking at compliance. So one distinction I see quite frequently is the difference between the operational leadership and risk ownership. So a GRC manager can coordinate the program, a security team can identify an issue, a tool can assign the track the deadline and show that something is overdue, something is out of order. But oftentimes, uh, these individuals can't decide on behalf of the business whether the company accepts a risk, changes the product, delays the launch, or makes the investment. And sometimes it's a question of bandwidth. Sometimes it's a question of how much agency is assigned to that role. But that decision has to be visible, and the decision has to follow certain guardrails. So let me put this to both of you then. Which decisions absolutely need to remain with leadership, and which can responsibly be delegated to the security and GRC teams? And I want both of you to answer. Let's go Ski first and then Sanket.
I think, leadership should own, obviously, they'll own the budget. No one else can get to own business priorities, right? So when we are running a business, we should understand what are our business priorities, customer commitments, what is being asked in the market, and what are we serving. Along with this, what are the risks that are associated, what compliance controls that we need to have, how much owning risk appetites and like control implementation, current state, roadmap, and all those things. That is something that leadership should own. Whereas security team will be responsible for defining and implementing the program, monitoring it, identifying issues, giving recommendations, highlighting those risks, telling what are the things that we need to do, so that security team it doesn't become a team of no. It tells, hey, if we have to achieve this, these are the things that we should have in place. This is the current status. These are the risks because of it. These are probably the ways that we should address that risk. And then takes all the decisions whether the risk can be accepted or should we invest in control based on the business priorities. So this would be a clear ownership. So leadership owns the budget, business priorities, customer commitments, risks, and security owns the program implementation, monitoring, and sharing the risks and recommendations. That's my take.
Great, thank you. Sanket, love to have your thoughts as well.
I would echo some of what he says. So I know not everyone on the call is a security compliance expert here, but I think in general, everyone understands the concept of risk. Like even if not a scientific way, at a high level, you understand what a risk is. And typically how you address a risk, whether that's compliance, GRC related risk, whether it's IT risk, security risk, financial risk, you have four options, right? One is you can address it, you can do something about it. The second thing, you can avoid it. The third thing you can do is buy insurance for it, for any residual risk. And the fourth thing is accept it. And that also quite especially if you're a smaller company, you're a startup, you're in high growth mode, you have a high risk appetite. So it's quite possible that you say, hey, this is the risk we have. You walk into leadership and they say, you know what, we accept the risk. And that's their decision to make, that they accept the risk. It's your job as a compliance person, if you're the person responsible, make sure that's documented, that they have accepted the risk. But then that's their decision to make. Right. So that's but the important thing here is what I always believed and I practiced is that try to go above and beyond your boundaries. So for example, if you're asking something of, say, HR, or you're asking something of IT, try to walk it as much as possible to a point where they have a clear picture of, hey, this is what before looks like, this is what we need to do, this is what my specific ask is. And it becomes more of a yes, this is how we do it, or no, but I accept the risk. So that's important. Don't just go in with a problem. Walk the solution as much as possible. It might not be perfect, but I'm sure the other your stakeholder or your partner will appreciate the fact that you spent the time understanding their problem. And again, compliance is very important to get. It's a partnership program. You need buy-in. There'll be challenges during the actual audit where you have to come ask for help, and you got to make sure you have the right, you have the relationships built up in advance for when you really need to execute. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the point of the audit, you are solely responsible for that. You can't pass the buck to someone else if you fail the audit, if you have been given all the other things that you have asked for. So you got to be clear on the asks you're making, and then you are solely responsible for it. Then you got to make sure that you have all the relationships built in when it comes time to execute.
So I was actually reflecting on both your responses, and I realized that the question I asked may have had a like the dichotomy I made the dichotomy appear stronger than it actually is, because first principle here is that compliance cannot drift away completely from business. It cannot exist in isolation. So the GRC team can coordinate the program, but business needs to have equal, if not more, amount of skin in the game when it comes to owning the risk. So, and once that alignment exists, the next question is not really which certifications should we collect, they kind of keep getting layered on top. But the broader questions then become: what does the company need to know? What does it need to control? What needs to operate continuously and consistently without fail? And where should the actual work be focused? So now let's get into the next segment for today, which is okay. So this one is going to be interesting, and it's designed to be a little provocative, ski and Sanket, if you will.
Mhm.
So this segment is called like take it or leave it, and I'm going to give you 6 situations where the right answer is not immediately obvious. The questions have tension inbuilt, but that's the fun bit. So you need to decide. So take it would mean that the company and you as a respondent here will take responsibility for it, and leave it would mean it's better handed off to an independent or a specialist partner. So if you choose take it, it means the ownership is on you, and respond whether it should be led by a human, tool, or both. So Ski and Sanket, give me your answer first and then a quick explanation. Everyone in the audience, play along in the chat. You have 5 seconds to lock in your choice before the panel responds. So let's begin. Okay, scenario one: accepting a business risk for Ski. 2 days before an important product launch, the team identifies a security issue. Addressing it immediately would delay the launch and affect a customer commitment. Moving forward would leave the issue unresolved during the release. Take it or leave it.
I think definitely security should take it, because we cannot just like that leave it without telling anything. So definitely we should understand what is the issue, what exactly it's causing the impact. Do we have any existing controls that we can still handle it? So that is there a acceptable side of things that we can do? Because decision is like, should I delay the launch or move forward? But here, at least I should, as Sanket said, I should analyze the situation and give my recommendations as a CISO. At least without knowing that, I cannot blindly, hey, it's your problem, you'll have to handle. It's end of the day, work closely with the team and understand what is the issue, how can we solve it, whether is can we release, if at all, if we end up releasing it, are we comfortable releasing it with some existing controls, or take a decision based on that. Otherwise, if there is like absolutely nothing, no compensating controls, releasing it only will bring more impact, then I think we should decide that decision of probably moving it or communicating it to the customer and all those things, which could be a good route. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah, I would say take it. And you have to keep in mind that again, going back to first principles, the reason you're doing it because a customer asked you to do compliance. But the customer asked you to do compliance because they expect certain security hygiene and operating maturity from you. So essentially, what happened with prior to SaaS companies, customers used to run products on premise, right? And they were to audit their own environment. At some point of time, they outsourced it to third-party vendors, but they expect the same level of due diligence as they had in-house. And that's the whole purpose of these third-party audit programs. So they expect that security hygiene. So if you're going to ship a product with a security issue, it's going to violate your SLA. You actually essentially failing your audit, whether your auditor finds it out or not, you're failing your audit. So you got to be in this continuous security program mindset. Having said that, usually for most security issues, there are different ways to treat it. Right, like as Steve mentioned, there's other mitigating controls you can have in place. If that security control, if that resolving that security issue is going to take a lot of QA and would significantly delay that release, then there might be other ways to mitigate the issue, security issue, so that you're limiting the impact of the issue. So that's important. Again, the risk comes into play again.
Yeah. And then as a follow-up, I would definitely look into like why this issue was identified just 2 days before and not earlier.
Yeah,
Because
preparing minutes before the exam.
fixes the entire situation itself, right? So if you are able to identify, yeah, this is an issue, we solve it, move it, okay. But the root cause is like why it happened 2 days and not earlier. Trying to understand that is the mature thing that you will do, which audits or compliances will not get. We are improving our security processes and we are making it even more mature. So yeah. that would be a closing one for this.
Got it. Thank you. Let's move to the next situation. Okay, so here's the card for situation two. And this one actually reminds me of conversations all of us at some point of time may have had with our SOC 2 auditor on exceptions and qualifications in the report and preparing for a management response. But I read out the card. An external audit begins next week. The team believes the control operated throughout the year, but the available evidence is incomplete, and several control owners cannot provide additional records, especially the last minute. The company still needs to demonstrate that the control is operating effectively. What do you do?
Yeah, go ahead, Ski.
I think, yeah. So now the question is like, who is facing the audit, right? So if we are facing the audit, then we cannot just hand it off to someone
Yeah.
else, right? If we are facing the audit, we are front facing it, we are talking to the auditors, we should be the shield. And
So when you say
figure out,
we, so when you say we, it means the security folks, right?
yes. Yeah, because that's what. Who is facing the audit is the question. If engineering is facing the audit, then it's their responsibility. Because just because I am a security team, I am facing the audit, but the control is owned or handled by some other department, I cannot just point it at, hey, why you don't have those records? We'll have to figure out a way, work as a team, see how those controls can be demonstrated with additional evidences or records by finding out solutions, and there are like good number of ways to do it. So yes, would take it.
Right. Sanket, your response?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, like Ski said, I mean, this is your responsibility. There's no one to give it to. You have to take it. The question you have to ask yourself is, how did you miss that evidence for the whole year, right? And that goes back to your human or tool conversation. So obviously, you didn't have the right tool in place that it didn't flag that the evidence was not collected. So you got to have this continuous audit readiness mindset. You can't wait 1 week before the audit to find out. You should find out within. So each control requires certain evidences, and there's a frequency that this evidence needs to collect it on.
Yeah.
And so you need to get alerts that. And so if a certain evidence, say there's a evidence from HR for doing background checks, and maybe that control is quarterly, then you need to go check that every quarter for the employees who joined within that quarter, your background checks were completed, right? And you still have that quarter, right? Even if someone joined last month, you still have this month to remediate it in case the background check was not done, right? But if you miss that quarter, then you kind of you're not meeting the control. So I think the main thing is tool. I think you gotta take it, you gotta implement it, and it's quite possible that you don't have the evidence, you cannot present to the auditors. The auditors will capture it as an exception, and that's fine. It is what it is. You learn your lesson. As Keem mentioned, do a proper postmortem, make sure the controls are the proper mechanisms are in place, and move on. Like, even the best of companies have had exceptions over the years, and you will be asked. What you can do is you can write a management letter explaining what happened and what's been done to remediate it, and just there's mechanisms to handle the exceptions and make and but it's just that if you have too many of them or recurring patterns, then you'll lose the trust of the customer.
And this is, I think, a bit of that tension takes a while to resolve, because we've found ourselves in so many situations where our customers are not really, I mean, they've had exceptions in the report, but then there's always a question of, should we take a report with exception? You can't take a qualified report to a customer for sure, but should I take a report with exceptions to a customer, or should I wait it out a little bit more? Is there potential loss of business in the interim? So these are questions with no easy answers, I guess.
Yeah. That's right. So it's all about how we are telling transparently, and also like what is the acceptable levels. Yes, obviously, if it's a qualified report, it's a qualified report, because we had all the good time to handle the control, and we cannot go and do all the things that we were supposed to do in that audit period. Just do it in 3 or 4 weeks of the report generation timeline. So yes, so definitely there are things, and yeah. Exceptions, it's also about like what exactly is the exception. And as Sanket said, what was the management response to it? Is the management response just, okay, we will look into it, or the management response has a clear plan of action, timeline committed, and all those things? That is what is going to ensure the trust. Because a SOC 2 report can be 50 pages, a SOC 2 report can also be 150 pages. So, yeah.
Got it. So let's move to situation 3, and this is the last situation here. Can we just change the slide, please? All right. So I'll read the card here. Uh, Access review conflict. A quarterly access review identifies employees with permissions beyond what their current roles appear to require, and especially in the early stages, right? I mean, interns having root user level privileges in AWS. So those employees are supporting a critical release, and their managers say changing access now could disrupt delivery. The review must still be completed and formally approved. What do you do?
Okay. Managers can say changing access could disrupt delivery, right? So then, then it changes the questions fundamentally. So if it is disrupting delivery, then probably it is a permission that they need to have. So I think that's the key takeaway. If it is not going to disrupt anything, then that is an over permission that they are not supposed to have. But removing the permissions, if it's going to disrupt the delivery, then yeah. So then we may have to review and make sure those things are properly documented. So yes, it is a definitely something to take, but it involves other humans as well here, trying to understand and document it. So yes.
So when the managers claim that it could disrupt delivery, most of the times they might also be applying a factor of
Okay.
safety on top of that, which is like, how do you qualify?
If it's got it.
I don't
If
think,
it's if it's a standard delivery response, that's what. Once you review, you get to know. If it's really affecting delivery, then yeah, because that review has to be done by only security. I cannot tell the department or the tool owner because, as you said, everyone will say, yeah, everybody needs access to it. So it's the job of security and compliance team to determine what is the need to know and what is the least privilege and whether it is still applicable or not.
I think again, this is
But
one of those classic examples where you either accept or mitigate a risk depending on the actual business requirement. Yeah. Sanket,
yeah.
what's your take on this?
Yeah, and I might get it into a little bit into the weeds of compliance with this, but the important thing is that what SOC 2 provides is controls. And based on those controls, you have policies and you have procedures, right? So policies are things that everyone needs to follow. Procedures is how you implement those controls and policies, right? And to me, if the business needs certain access, uh, then it should just be documented in the release process, right? And absolutely, it's quite possible for business as usual. Someone needs a limited privilege, and you should just document it as a part of the release process, and then you can provide evidences based on that. It's And if it happens mid-cycle, then what you can do is you got to make sure that you version all your procedures, right? So you say, okay, this was the process up to this point. After this point, we went through a management review and we decided we need to change the process. It was approved by say if it's an engineering process, the VP of engineering approved this process and the change in process. And then it depends on the stage of your company, like, and the quality of the auditors used. And that's one big thing that people frequently mess up is like quality. If you have a good auditor in place, then when you make that change in process, you actually send them an advice. So the good quality auditors, they engage with you throughout the cycle, not just at the start and the end. So you can advise them that, hey, we had this change in process, just want to make sure you're aware. So you're not surprising them when they come on site. So that's an important process. You got to manage it end to end. So what you're describing is actually quite normal, and you just got to adjust your processes for it and make sure everyone's aware of it.
Just key and Sanket, I'm actually quite tempted to do an entire webinar on quality of auditor and what that could mean, because that has come to mean a lot of things, and how to pick the most pragmatic option for the size and scale of your business, because that could mean a variety of things. But Ski, any closing thoughts before we leave this game segment?
Yeah, I think there is a good amount of take it and leave it. We have to tell what exactly is needed. And again, if everything is explained, right, obviously, security is not the one to decide, right? It's the respective manager or the tool owner to decide. So what we can do is validate whether the decisions are done and the frameworks for decisions are there. I cannot go and tell, hey, as a manager, you should not approve it, because if the manager rightfully feels justifiable that, hey, this is needed, then I think, yeah, it's the manager's decision as well. So, yes.
Got it. Perfect. So that was fun. I think the harder question is not only who can perform the task. Uh, it's also whether the company is making the right judgment in-house and using automation or specialists at the right point, getting in experts at the right point. Okay, Saket, let me actually let me segue into the automation side now. So where do, again, going back to the characterization that we had earlier, small to mid-sized companies, small teams. So where do lean companies automate too early and and accidentally automate a potentially weak or unclear or ill-defined process?
Yeah, I think again, y- you have to understand the why. Like it's very important to understand the intent of the control and make sure you have a process in place. So basically, what's the intent of the control? How does it map to your environment? Make sure you're working with a subject matter expert for that control. You're not making assumptions. You're working with that subject matter expert. How does it work now? What changes need to happen in order for it to meet the control? And then you have that process in place. Then you say, okay, this process is, and sometimes for a few turns, you might want to do it manually. Then you say, okay, this looks good. Okay, let's go automate. Right? I think that's important. What sometimes people do is either they say, okay, I mean, they might buy a compliance automation tool like Scrut. Okay, Scrut's got all these APIs. Let's just turn them on, and okay, we are compliant because there was this control. Scrut said do this, we did it, and hence we passed. But it might not match your environment, right? And it's very important that there's a distinction between the tool that's helping you with compliance to scale and the auditor who comes in and audits your business directly. There's no relationship between the auditor and your compliance tool. You're working directly with the auditor. And so when they come in, they're going to look at you, not at Scrut. So you're going to make sure you understand what the control required, what was done, did it match your environment, did it meet the intent, and then you say, okay, look, we are done. This is mature. So people just go turn on knobs and think that they're done, and either the auditor comes in and they catch it in the audit cycle, or they catch it when a larger customer gets into due diligence, start asking questions, and then the onion starts unwrapping, and then they find issues. So it's very important, like just spend more time upfront to make sure you're doing the right things, and versus learning it at the end of an audit or with a large customer in a sales cycle is very, very painful. I mean, it beats the purpose of doing this whole thing anyway, which was you were doing it for revenue acquisition, right? So put some more effort in upfront.
Yeah, one of the things that we discuss with our prospects when they're evaluating tools or when we're part of the bake-offs or the general evaluation processes, we try to form a picture of how they would operate if they were to do it completely manually. And
Mhm.
when that clarity is not present, we have a dialogue, we have a few conversations to establish the baseline first, because if we don't know how we'll do it manually, uh, we'll exacerbate the situation using automation. We
Yeah.
end up automating the
Yeah.
wrong thing. All right. Ski, your take on that very quickly.
Yeah, I think as Sanket said, whatever control that we are deploying, someone should, not someone, at least security should determine whether it is the right control for the business that we are operating. Otherwise, even if you deploy state of the art control, the control is not meaningful. The control is not adding the required trust or assurance to the customer, not bringing in the required level of protection to the company, right? So I think that's
So,
the
Ski,
simple thumb rule.
if I may actually push you a little further here, right? If I may take the liberty to do that, right? So let's take the opposite problem. At what stage do you think companies are too late to automate?
Too late to automate. This is like trying to bring in a tool to automate when you are like 3 or 4 weeks before the audit.
Yeah, I mean
That
the
is,
manual process. Yeah, they've outgrown the
yeah.
manual processes that have been running their compliance and risk management for so long. And they are what are the signals that they should pay heed to? That now this is the time when we should start thinking about automation. It's too late now.
Okay. Is the question when we should start thinking for
Yes,
automation?
yes, yes.
I think it's simple. So if something is a repetitive work, I don't think a human's effort should be involved. That too, specifically, if you are handling a security team, definitely you will be hiring a good GRC specialist or experts or a security engineer or for cloud or security operations. And if their job is trying to write policies or follow up with people over Slack, email, collect evidences, track a spreadsheet, or answer questions to customers, which are the same questions written in different contexts, then definitely they should automate, because all these human efforts are repetitive in more or less the same way. I think tools can do better reminding, following up, and collection of evidences and validating it and all those things. If this is done, then humans or lean security teams are like, you don't need that much amount of security personnel within the team. Whoever is it, one or two, then they can work on meaningful items like identifying risks, bringing down the risk exposure, probably looking at the business architecture, governance, incident response, which definitely require human judgment and planning. So yeah.
Got it. Okay. So we have 15 minutes left. Let's quickly move to the next segment, which is specifically around AI governance for lean teams. Okay, so we have the change of card here. And this is one of the areas where balance and, honestly, I would say sanity is being tested across teams. In many companies, AI adoption is far outpacing the security teams and IT teams' ability to discover, understand, or govern it. So let's spend the next few minutes on what AI governance could look like. Again, anchoring around the kind of companies that we've been discussing so far. These are not enterprise customers. These are not enterprise companies. These are small and mid-sized companies with very lean teams. So, and this is something that we've started noticing through our customers' behavior as well, where employees have been using AI tools to move fast, summarize calls, review code, draft responses, analyze information, to just name a few use cases. The intent was productivity, but the security team often had or has no visibility into which tools are being used. There's no clear inventory, who was using them, what level of privilege they've had, what company and customer data was entering them, were they entering PHI into the prompts, cardholder data into the prompts, were they uploading sensitive documents into the prompts? And that led us to a simple question. How can a company govern AI usage it cannot even see? And that's also why we built the Shadow AI discovery and governance tool at Scrut. So the goal is to help lean security teams understand where AI is already being used, which tools need review, and where clearer guardrails are required. Because it's not just a policy problem, it affects security, privacy, vendor risk, and a bunch of other things. So, key question to you. From a CISO's perspective, when employees begin using AI tools faster than the security teams can review them, where does the real risk start showing up first? Is it data exposure, data leak, customer trust, lack of accountability, or something else?
So I think the AI usage is something that as a CISO, I would look at whether it is internal enterprise usage to bring in the productivity or efficiency, or it is something that is, if the AI used in the product that we sell, that should be a clear priority. Because the moment when we talk about bringing in customer data, the employee productivity and all those things are considered, but that takes second priority. The moment you're bringing in data, and if it's customer data, I think data protection and all those things takes the highest priority. We cannot say, hey, we have got productivity, we are improving, but at the cost of customer data and all those things. So I think what we should understand is, as you rightly said, what tools are being used, right? Who is using what tools and what data is entered? That changes the entire game. If it's an internal data, if it's non-production, or even if it's a company internal data, if it's used for productivity, the severity and the risks and the controls is a different take. But if it's a customer data, then there is a lot of things that we need to involve, right? Whether the customer data is supposed to be used for such activities or training, or it's only for the purpose that you are used. So there should be clear segregation and governance on how we should use AI as a company in two aspects: within the company and the product which is used by other companies. So that should be the guideline, and then followed by what are the things that we have to do, giving them the freedom, setting up the governance, because we cannot say no. And we cannot also say, yes, hey, yeah, go ahead and use all the possible AI tools as long as we are able to bring the productivity and revenue, that's fine. I cannot also say that, hey, you cannot use any AI tools. We should figure out a balance. Okay, use this for so and so use cases, but if you are involving anything that is outside of it, or customer or sensitive or production, make sure these things are in place. And we should also like figure out how do we monitor and get this inventory. That should be the basics for us.
Got it. Thanks, Key. And if I were to switch gears just a little bit from a practitioner's perspective to Sanket, a builder's perspective, right? And the productivity gains are real. It's an order of magnitude gain in productivity. But how should a lean company balance the need to move quickly with the need for security, auditability, and clear guardrails? How does it strike the balance? What heuristics
Yeah,
could
and
be?
I think and what's happening with AI right now is just it's pretty much every, I don't know, probably every day, every week, every month, you're going through this cycle of hype and disappointment. So, so something new comes out, you know, there's a lot of excitement, uh, and just the cost of building software has gone almost to zero right now, right? So everyone who can vibe code and has an idea or has some expertise in some domain, they go build a prototype, right? And then they ship a product, and people are excited by the idea. They maybe it solves this long-standing problem they had for almost free. So they go download the tool and they want to start using it, right? So there's a little bit of FOMO right now. Everyone's chasing that. And so you want to find a balance between giving your people some room to try things out and innovate, but at the same time, not put your business at risk, right? Whether it's customer data, your sales data in your CRM, your employee data, your HR data, you don't want to put your business at risk. So I think you need to have some kind of lightweight process in place. Maybe the employee can check in with their manager or something, but at least have them write them down. Like, hey, I need to use this tool, and this is my reason to do it. I will. I think just that process of writing down, most people will figure out I don't really need this thing. I just got excited by reading something. I don't really need it, and hey, maybe I can do it on my personal stuff. I don't need to use it for business purposes, right? So it's just a gating thing that some of the requests might go away. Then you have some things where people really want to try it out. Then give them a small, safe place to experiment. Right? Maybe you have a separate environment or something where they can try things out, or a replica sandbox where they can try it out. Get it out of their system. Maybe learn something from it. And if it looks like the right thing to do for business, then you have the more rigorous process to adopt that tool. So I would say gating it is important. In the other part is like shadow AI inventory is important, but try to get yourself in front of the problem where you give people the permission to use things in a safe way. And I would say culturally, that's what you should try to encourage.
Got it. So the goal is to not block AI adoption or be overly conservative, but it's to make agent usage visible, reviewable, and governable, if you will, without creating unnecessary friction for the business. Now,
Yeah.
before we go deeper into the what the operating model should look like and some specific operational nuances of it, let's get the audience in. So let's go to poll two. Okay, so poll two is already on the screen. Where is your biggest AI governance blind spot today? We do not know which AI tools are being used. We do not know what data is entering them. We have policies but cannot monitor or enforce them, and we have defined controls and ongoing visibility. This one is actually pretty close. Last time we had a very clear distribution. This one is actually pretty evenly spread. But I think the second problem looks like the one which is something that you mentioned earlier in the conversation, which is we do not know what data is entering them. Biggest concern in the room is not necessarily the tool itself, but it's what may be entering it. So Ski, actually, let me bring you in. So what information should employees never into a public or unapproved LLM, and how specific should that company's guidance be? To what level of specificity should they drill it down into the, say, employee onboarding program? Or in fact, that's probably part two of the question. How should that information be even disseminated in a manner where people absorb it?
So I think the ask is like what we should do if to make sure like employee doesn't put in any or all information, right? I think yeah. setting up the governance framework, right? So starting with, we should figure out ways to tell what are the approved tools or platforms that should be used for what, because you will also end up allowing them to explore. As you said, we cannot say no to all those tools. So we should establish clear guidelines like, hey, if you want to experiment, find out if the tool is working fine or not, let's follow these things. Sign an evaluation agreement, make sure these data is used, get it done, and then figure out. Everybody is welcome to experiment. Even put in a Slack channel AI show and tell, hey, this is the tool that I reviewed, this is what it has, so that everybody gets the visibility instead of same department using multiple tools for the same use cases. So that can be simply avoided if everybody starts sharing what these capabilities of the different tools of those sort. How do we play? With what data we can play and experiment. The moment you narrow down, then that's where we should be allowed to put the actual customer data or internal or sensitive confidential data. And again, the job of security and compliance is to take a look at the tool to understand what controls it has, what guardrails can be implemented, what data protection controls are there. And if it's a customer data involved, definitely we should think of zero data retention controls, depending upon what we have agreed to the customer. Because it is also something that if the contractual agreement or the nature of business that you are doing allows the data to be stored beyond a point, then it goes to a different way. But if data should not be used, then you should also make sure the zero data retention controls are implemented so that even if data is processed, it is never retained within that tool of those sorts. So these are the things that we should at a very high level consider. So look at customer commitments. What risks do we have with this tool or vendor? Probably data residency is also one more aspect of it. And then all the existing controls, trainings, all those things. Then you should also, like, while these are technical controls and organizational controls, human involvement is all about right from day one. What is our AI policy? What are approved tools? Creating awareness, specific trainings on what are the tools that are available, telling what tools are used by which departments, all these things. So while the 20% is defining the controls, guardrails, and frameworks, 80% is all about reiterating, creating awareness. Otherwise, you still have the tools, you'll not be able to make sure if people are following the right thing.
Correct. And Ski, actually, that allows us to segue into the next question, right? So once basic visibility exists, what should the next level of AI governance maturity look like? Again, to remind the audience and to the panelists, we are still talking about an SMB and mid-sized company. We're not talking about a large enterprise.
Yeah.
And if you look at the card, we've pieced together some starting points, but let's actually try and make it very practical and actionable. So imagine a company discovers that sales, support, product, and engineering all are using different AI tools. Some of them, in fact, with overlapping use cases, like duplicate note-taking tools, for example, Sanket, right? So, question to Sanket. Sanket, what should the company do first once you found
Yeah,
out this thing for integrity?
I think it's very important. It's so the most important thing, and in general, but especially around security and compliance, is that you need to manage expectations. And in order to manage the expectations, you need to communicate what the expectations are. You need to negotiate and you need to get agreement. And one of the first things to do is write down what you expect. Right. So the most important thing is clarity. In general, people, when they understand what they need to do and how to do it, then most of the time they'll follow it. Right. It's the ambiguity that creates the problem. So if you have certain controls in place, like and a lot of this flows down from SOC 2. If you have a SOC 2 in program in place, in general, it's well defined. It makes you classify, hey, what's customer data, what's company confidential data, right? And what's public data. Those are the three buckets. And you have certain customer contractual requirements. That's a standard agreement. And you almost cannot put it anywhere without publishing that's a sub processor that you're using, right? So it's very locked down. You got to make sure customer data and everyone who touches it should be aware this cannot be published anywhere without first talking to me, right? And so it's the what cannot be done and who do you need to talk to get approval to make an exception, right? So that's the first thing. Customer data is like got to be super careful. Company confidential data might vary by the department, right? So again, it's important for people to understand what they cannot do and what's the process to follow if they need to get approval for doing it, right? Those two things are very important to communicate. And then based on that, you'll get an understanding if there's overlapping tools and things like that. And a lot of times people do it because it's just ignorance, not what does it say, that it's not ill intent, it's ignorance, right? So if they knew there's someone else using a similar tool, they might just go use it instead of trying to do the same thing. Right? So it's important to then document what each team is using. Hey, these are the things, I mean, just simple things, right? If you're using Notion, put it in Notion that these are the tools we use for this purpose. If you want to add something new, then let's have a discussion, whether that's a Slack, Zoom, wherever, right? So I think that's important to keep that uh, awareness of what is not okay to do and where to have the conversation, and how to get agreement to move forward on using the tool.
Got it. So we are almost out of time. So I'll just
Yes.
make this a rapid fire question for both of you, Sanket and Ski, 30 seconds each. If you had to look back and take one decision differently when you were building or operating lean security and GRC teams, what would that be? Let's do Sanket first and then Ski. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would say, and I would say it's kind of keying off the last point. I felt most of the times when I ran into problems, I hadn't done a good job of communicating to people. I kind of surprised them. I didn't do a good enough job when I had time to communicate to them, and this is what this is what the business needs to do, and this is how we're gonna go about doing it. These are the commitments I would need from you or your team in order to accomplish this, so that when you come back asking for that, there's agreement. It's like, yeah, we had that conversation. Oh, sorry, I forgot about it, but I made a commitment. Let me go make it happen, right? So I think the biggest things always are that, even if I look at my first, so when I joined Coupa in 2009, I was doing a SOC 1, uh, pro, completely manual with some automation with Google Drive. But I think that's the thing I learned over time. It's like, just make sure you're getting agreement from all the stakeholders.
I think in my experience, every decision has been of that sort, I would simply say, as a CISO, because it's tough to make people understand, right, why we are doing it unless and until they see the impact in real time. But yeah, one of the things for learning, so I run a lean security team. It's only like 2 or 3 people handling the entire security. I think investing early on automation rather than for making sure the controls are in place, rather than we are just doing it for the audits or for the certification. Initially, there were a lot of resistance. Hey, why are we doing this? All those sort. But when they see the outcome, audits are just a part of an exercise where continuous compliance came into it. We never work for like, hey, we have audit coming in. Our job is to make sure, are the controls running as expected? If something is not working, is the tool identifying it? Audit is just a part of your job. You just open the evidences to the auditor and do it. So that's something that definitely for a lean GRC team helped. And this is a true story. When I joined Oculus for taking up security and compliance. Yeah.
All right. So we're over time, but Ski and Sanket, thank you so much for joining in for such a practical and candid conversation. And thank you everyone who joined us and shared questions today. We have a bunch of free resources available post the webinar. We'll also share the relevant material here. But thanks again. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll also send the sessions recording to your inboxes soon.
Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful discussion, Aayush.
See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.